everybody. It's me, John Ward, and I am back with another One Filmmaker, One Film. And today my guest is...
Hi, I'm Joseph Vogele of Perfect Ratio Films. I'm the co-writer, the director, and the creator of Specimen 6.
Awesome, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, so am I, because I am, and I'm going to show the DVD here, if I can get it out of the black. There we go. You have your copy too. Yep. So this I was very happy and proud to purchase, and I definitely wanted to support you and the film because we'd never met, and you're part of my anthology film of Reign of Vibrant Screams. And
I am now.
Yeah, and your film is completed and done, and it's on the timeline, as Joe Sherlock would say. And you sent me a copy of Specimen 6 before it officially came out. Yeah, and I was amazed by it. I thought this is a very original. You're welcome. Very original. Left, right turns, up, down, everywhere. I was not expecting at all for this movie to be this way. I thought it would just be Friday the 13th or something, just a guy in the woods killing people, and it isn't. It goes beyond that, and I've been a supporter of you in the film since. So how did you come up with this idea originally? And I did listen to the audio commentary, so you're probably going to be repeating yourself. So for people who want to know more, definitely pick up the film. It's got a ton of stuff. I can show it here on the back. Short films. It's got audio commentaries. It's got some like radio stuff, some audio radio, and it's which I haven't had a chance to listen to, but I watched all the other stuff. So definitely pick this up because it is going out of print. When does it go out of print, actually?
It goes out of print at the end of July, so they won't be selling it past that. I can tell you a little later how to watch it otherwise. I mean, you just won't get all the extra cool bonus stuff. And there's actually original stuff on that DVD you won't be able to see ever again because I wanted Tony to have a very original special DVD for it. So, but you will be able to see the film. If you want to, you can see it on Vimeo. You just won't get all the other cool stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cool stuff on here. Yeah. So it's definitely
puts together a great package.
He does, and I had him on my first season of One Filmmaker, and he is another guy who I love his catalog, and I wanted to support him and get the word out there. So I'm glad that he picked this up and did such a great job with it. So how did you come up with the idea? Like what spawned this whole thing into like writing a script?
Okay, so kind of I won't get too far too back into it, but my first film was The Last Temptation of Bible Boy, which I did about 7 years ago now. It was, and I really wanted to make a film back then. And after I had met Joe Sherlock, and he had kind of inspired me to do so, and so I made this kind of wacky film, The Last Temptation of Bible Boy, which can be seen on YouTube for free. And then I didn't do anything for a few years until Joe had texted me. I had done like this little short called Let's Play Dolls, which you can see on that DVD. But then Joe texted me about, hey, I'm doing this anthology. Would you want to direct one of my scripts? And I said, yes, I want to do that. And so he sent me the script for another doll film that he had written originally for Tony Mazziello, actually. And so that's an interesting story if we can talk. Yeah, and so I had learned that from Tony later on. And so after I had done Dark Zone 13, I wanted to do something else, but I didn't know what.
Which is this here.
I just have a lot of ideas all the time with Dark Zone. As Joe Sherlock's Dark Zone 13, you can get that at skullfaceastronaut.com. And I think it's a pretty nifty film, if I may say so myself. So I had, I do all sorts of stuff. I write prose fiction. I make movies. I do artwork. I do lots of stuff. And so at the time I had been working on this idea for short stories. I was like, well, I kind of want to do this like book of short stories, but I want to do a slasher thing. And so I started kind of coming up with these ideas for this thing I was calling Experiment 6 at the time. And I wanted my slasher to be really original. And I wanted to, you have to set it apart from all the other slasher killers that are out there, because there's a lot of them. There's been hundreds of slasher killer sort of films. And so I wanted I think it's important to have a good origin story. And so some people might say they just want like, oh, I just want a slasher killer with no background because the mystery is more scary. I disagree with that theory altogether. A lot of people say that about Michael Myers, and they always get pissy about like, oh, he should have never had a sister. He should have. How dare Rob Zombie like explain all this stuff? And I'm like, I want more stuff, and so that's what I wanted to do, because I loved Jason Goes to Hell, and I love Friday the 13th Part 7 because they expand the universe and they do all things like that. And so with what I was doing with Experiment 6 is I wrote a couple chapters, and I kind of started getting this idea that the main character was not the slasher, but this character Marissa Gray. And so anyway, I was sitting on it for a while, these couple chapters, and I wasn't sure what to do with it. And I kept coming, evolving the idea of what made a slasher killer, what was important about it. And then I decided, like, well, I haven't done, any movie stuff in a little while, not since Dark Zone 13. And so I was like, well, I'm going to make my slasher killer film, and I'm going to put everything into it that I can. And I'm just going to unload my brain. And so that's where I ended up I took the first chapter that I had written, and I had actually adapted that into a script. And then that went through about 5 different more iterations, and then that wound up in Specimen 6. But what ended up happening was I was laying in bed one night, and I had already like dreamt up all these different things of how the chemical E and everything happens, which we can talk about, for creating a slasher killer. And then I came up with the idea of the very first short in the film. I woke up 3 hours. I didn't even go to bed, actually. I laid there for 3 hours writing it in my mind, and then I got out of bed, and then I sat down and I wrote the whole thing in just a few hours. And then from there, I took off, and that's where we started making Specimen 6. So
sometimes that's how it happens. I mean, it's just boom, and then you just write and something clicks when before it didn't. For as an example, for me with
just like that.
Yeah, for as an example, with Aximus, is originally it was just meant to be a serial killer in a storage facility. Once I added in Santa, I wrote that thing in like a day. But before I was stuck for like a month. It's boring. It's just a serial killer in a storage facility. Who cares? But once you kind of add that little thing to it, it changes everything. So, and that sounds like, kind of what happened to you is something just clicked and you were able to just write that thing in a few hours.
Well, I wrote the first script that you'll see in the movie. The story behind the other scripts and the whole production of the film is a vastly bigger, longer sort of thing, and definitely something that took a toll out of me after a year of filming all the different stuff. So there's that.
Yeah, well, can you explain a little bit? Because there are, if I am correctly saying, there are 6 chapters in this.
Yeah, okay. I'll break it down the production process. So what we ended up doing was we shot the first, what we originally called The Psychopath, but in the movie, when you see it, it's called Travis. I wrote it, and I talked to all my friends, and I got people excited, and I wrote it because I'd done a lot of acting myself growing up, and I studied acting up in the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, and I've been in, I don't know, 30 some odd plays, and I kind of like never wanted to give it up, but I just kind of got tired of doing these family friendly play things because I have kind of a messed up, kind of personality, and I like dark shit. And so I half wrote it because I had this great inspiration, but then I also wrote it because I really wanted to play a really messed up character. And so what ended up happening was I went to my filmmaking partner and friend, John Stone, and I gave him the script. And I said, I want to play that part, and I need you behind the camera a majority of the time so that I can do that. Because usually I would be like the one jumping all over the place and directing, and then he would add his little bit of stuff here or there. But I said, but if I'm doing this, I need you to take the reins a bit more. So that's why he ended up being more of the director on the first segment. And we filmed that short, and then we started going into, we were like, well, we got to figure out what the story is going to be for the next thing, because I actually had no idea. And we ended up writing, I ended up having one of those like kind of like eureka moments, and I wrote the next script, and then Johnny and I kind of went back and forth. It went through about 4 or 5 different more rewrites, and during those rewrites we were auditioning people, we were getting all the blood and makeup and everything like that, so everything was happening all at the same time. It was very chaotic. And then we shot that one, and we shot the Sinister Mystery segment, which we originally called The Legend. So we wanted to see like where is this slasher killer so many years in the future, and how has his presence, this pure evil presence, affected the world. And so we shot that, and I met a lot of like really great actors, and we had a great time shooting that. And then basically every single time we had to shoot something new, I was writing as I was going. I was calling people saying, hey, I got this idea, could you do this? Okay, I'll let you know when it actually comes into being a script. And so in between each of the script, I was shooting, writing, not editing, I was shooting, writing, doing all that stuff. Each one took about a month and a half to 2 months. You always have that lull during the winter months because everybody's busy with their family, so you can't really do anything during that time. So I ended up doing an audio play during the middle of that whole business, because I can't stop going on up here, and I wanted to keep exploring Specimen 6. So I wrote one of the audio plays and we produced it. And then after the winter was over, we went into filming The Psychic. And then after The Psychic, we filmed, what did we do? Oh, the next thing we did was actually Hunting Grounds, which was which we originally called In Hell, because I really wanted my slasher killer to be in hell, because I love Jason Goes to Hell, but you never see him in hell. And so I always wanted to see him in hell. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to take my character, I'm going to put him in hell. And then I wrote that with my friend Amy Christine Moline. And then the final thing that we shot was actually the original chapter of the book, which by this point I had rewritten about 8 different times. And that's chapter 5 in the movie, not the final chapter, but chapter 5. And so that was the final thing that we shot. And after that, I had some pickup shots here or there, and actually we went into shutdown all around the world. So it was kind of fortuitous that I was able to get everything shot for those 6 shorts. If we hadn't gone into shutdown, I probably would have done a 7th chapter. But that is what it is.
So the chapters were not shot in order; they were shot out of order, and there wasn't a 120-page script, let's say, that was already there. Instead, it was a short story here, a short story there. And did you, even shooting them out of order, did you know that this would be chapter 2, this one's going to be chapter 3, the next one will be chapter 1, kind of that type of thing to put them together?
I had a vague idea. I wasn't sure what the 2 last things were going to be. But then when I was editing, that's when that started clicking in my brain, and how I finally realized, I'm like, oh, that actually works better, because I never stopped thinking about what the story's going to be. And so as I was editing, that's when I realized that chapter Hunting Ground should be the finish. That should lead people in kind of a what's more is going to happen sort of thing. And so I wasn't 100% sure. I was 80% sure, I would say.
So with not having like an already, like I said, 120-page script, which is typical, without knowing these type of things and filming it over a period of time, did you know what your budget would be, or was it just kind of shoot and go?
I kind of figured that I try to keep each of the shorts to be about $100 to $200, but it didn't always end up being that way. Like I think Sinister Mysteries actually cost me around $500 to do, and some of the other ones were around $200 to $300. Except for I think Unchained was probably $50 was the cheapest thing that I did, and so altogether, after everything was said and done, and actually during the middle of all that, I launched an Indiegogo campaign. So I wasn't just doing all of the shooting and the writing and the things like that. I was promoting the movie on Facebook, and I was doing specials on Facebook. I was doing live specials. So I'd be doing this thing for like the campaign to try to, get interest. So I go on Facebook and say, hey, I'll eat this amazingly, incredibly, stupidly hot pepper if you give me some money for my movie. And so I pretty much just, I was killing myself that way. I was like, this is a character thing and I'm going to eat it and I'm going to hurt myself really bad. Please give me money. So we were launching
Did that work?
the Indiegogo campaign. I was promoting it was mostly a lot of our friends that gave us money in the end, and we only got maybe $700. But that was something that ended up paying for basically food for cast and a new lighting kit. So, that was something. So, but anything with what I was doing, because I have learned a lot from Joe Sherlock and how he does his films, and I had been on, just watched him and worked with him before, so I knew kind of like how much a really decent looking short might cost and how you can do it with like penny pinching and things like that. So I in some ways it worked. In a lot of ways, I mean, I say $1,700 on the IMDb, but to be honest, I honestly have no idea. It's probably more than that, just because of everything I had to spend. I was like, because I always fed my actors. I had to buy costumes. I had to buy props. I had to make props. We used gallons of fake blood in the whole thing. So Lord knows it's probably been in between 1,700 to 2,000. So yeah, that's a answer there.
So would you look at, was it just basically saying I'm going to spend X amount for each episode that could, or for each chapter? Can you kind of take me through really any of the chapters? It could be chapter 1 if you'd like to. What was your process of pre-production just on one of the chapters? Like what would you have to go through to get that made?
Okay, I think the simplest one that we did was probably the first chapter. And so I knew I had written the script, I had the script in hand, and I had talked to all my friends at a barbecue we threw actually. And I said, I want to make this movie, and my great grand plan is to make a full feature length film. And we're going to have 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever of these shorts that are going to be in this film. And I said, who wants to be in it? And then I would go around and I talked to my friends. I'm like, you'd be great in this. You'd be great in this. And so I talked to a few of my friends. I had talked to Ruby Solis, who had actually, I had directed in Dark Zone 13. And I said, I have this idea, and you're going to be kind of the star of the whole thing, because we had already worked together, and I'd already dumped fake blood all over, and taken filmed her in the shower. So we were very comfortable with each other. And she goes, yeah, I'll do that. I'm like, okay, I'll give you the script. And so I had Ruby Solis, who was playing Marissa Gray. And I knew I could direct her as well as act with her, and because I did a lot of kind of skeezy things as my character on her, as you well know. And,
oh yeah.
So, and so I talked to, basically it was a really small cast and crew mostly. We filmed some stuff. The prep was not too much. I had to go buy so I bought a microwave because we had this thing in the script where I was like, I'm gonna be all artsy fartsy and I'm gonna have the camera go round and round inside the microwave. And we built this thing, we did this whole thing, and the shot turned out like shit, so I cut it. But so we had, made that. We made sure we had tons of fake blood, just the props, everything like that. I rehearsed with Ruby, and then we shot it. So it was kind of the same process with a lot of them, except the other shorts I auditioned a lot of people to try to fill my cast, because I don't have that many friends that want to be in my movies. So, but there are a lot of really wonderful actors and actresses and whatnot around here. So I held auditions, and some very nice people I met along the way, actually. And the experiment kind of happened in an interesting way. So that's the third chapter. So I had held auditions for the second chapter, and I think we talked to maybe 50 girls or female actors, and a lot of them, and we came down to the two, but then I had met a bunch of other ones that I really liked, and I had met Lillian Mangan, and she did a bunch of other stuff that she did like behind the set. So she became my assistant director in the Sinister Mysteries one, and she was great because that was a really complicated shoot. And but I knew I wanted her as an actor as well. And so Johnny and I wrote the experiment specifically for her to play Fiona. So a lot of it kind of just happened because of happenstance and a lot of necessity, but also out of inspiration. So I had a lot of inspiration from my actors. Like, there's a scene in Sinister Mysteries that I wrote in whole cloth because of the two gals that I was working with, and they were so good together. I wanted to see them in a kind of a touching, emotional character building scene, and so we wrote them both a scene. And so things just kind of happen organically and out of necessity. And I don't know if that is kind of a crazy answer for that question.
And you're in Oregon, correct?
I'm in Washington State, actually. I'm at the very tip top corner. Yeah, I'm tip top corner right next to Canada. Yep.
So, oh wow, okay. So what is the weather like up there? So during for production, what happened with that? Was there anything in any of these chapters that weather might have prevented you from doing anything from where you're at, or how was the overall production like? If you can go into detail about that.
Yeah, I can. So I knew better at the time than to write a lot of outdoor scenes, but you're making a slasher film about a camp, so you got to be outside, right? And so the first short takes place mostly outside. We shot that in the summer. It was nice out, so that was easy to shoot. The second one, we were very lucky. We had a weekend that I think it might have sprinkled for only a few minutes, but it was mostly nice out. And for the one that was kind of the worst thing that happened was I kept shooting and shooting all year long. And when we were doing the psychic, the psychic wasn't the worst thing, but we did have to fight the rain a little bit. So we were shooting, I'm like, okay, we got to make sure it's not raining for an hour. So we were watching the clock. So, you're jumping in and out of the rain and hoping that it dries up for 10 minutes to shoot something. And then, but the worst was the final thing, which was in hell. We had actually written this whole completely different thing that we had shot. Like, if you watch the movie, what we had written and what we had attempted to shoot was vastly different than what you see in the film. And a lot of it was like 2 days of rain. And so one of those days was so rained out that I couldn't film anything. We tried to maneuver the story around to shoot it a little different way, but it just didn't work. So yeah, I mean, it rains up here all the time. It's Washington. So
that's why I wanted to ask the question. Yeah.
I've been rained out multiple occasions. It just happens. So you shoot, you wait for those 10 minutes that you can shoot something. Just recently I was shooting something where we were watching the clock, and it had just been raining earlier that day, and we had this comfortable little 1 hour of no rain that I was able to shoot. And then sure enough, it started raining right after that. Just the way you do it up here.
So, excuse me. So with the different chapters, because I find those to be interesting, do the chapters, was it almost kind of like a necessary thing because the film is being shot over a period of time? Or do you think if you remove the thing that just says chapter 2, and gives the title, do you think the film would still work without the chapters?
I don't know. Maybe it would. That actually wasn't the original intent. I had no intention to shoot it as chapters. That ended up happening in the editing process. I had actually shot a whole um, interconnected sort of wraparound thing. So you can actually see that. I turned it into that video journals of Marissa Gray on the DVD there.
Oh, I
And there
watched
she's
that.
sitting
Yeah.
there talking about it.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot more to that. So I cut out a bunch of it and I tried to make it interesting for the special edition thing there. But there's a lot more. And I actually we had shot this thing where Marissa would be cut in between each one, explaining the process of creating Specimen 6. But during the editing process, I was watching the footage, and I can only blame myself because I wrote the damn thing. But I was really bored. I was watching the footage, and I was just like, if I'm bored, people are going to be bored. And I didn't want to make a boring film. So I didn't use the wraparound footage, and that's when I said chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and I came up with the new titles. But I still had all that footage, and I wanted to do something, so I edited it and I did some weird little gimmicky things, and that's what you see in the DVD. And I was like, and still there's some good information because I can't help myself. I need to like discover more about this universe and Specimen 6 and things like that. I keep adding and adding and adding, and so that was just more, and I want people to see it. So yeah, we actually have this whole wraparound. It wasn't chapters originally.
So do you kind of almost consider this maybe like an anthology?
In some way, yeah. I mean, I would. I mean, it's all connected. The way that I presented it many times was it's one part Friday the 13th, another part Frankenstein, and 1/3 Pulp Fiction. And so I've been saying that since the beginning. And so I knew at some way that I wanted it to be these shorter things, but I always wanted them to be connected in a lot of ways. And so the original plan was, well, maybe I want to shoot a feature and I want it all to be connected, but how can I do it where it might be easier? And I thought to myself, well, maybe it's easier to shoot it throughout a year and we'll just shoot one here, one there, one there. It ended up actually being harder that way in a lot of ways. And so I definitely learned from that. But I would say in some ways it's an anthology. Yeah. And in other ways, I don't think so, because the story interconnects so much that it's, kind of its own entity, its own being.
Could any of these stories be taken out and just used as a short film? Like if you want to put something into a short film festival, do you think you could kind of take a couple of them and remove them and they'd be their own films?
I think maybe Sinister Mysteries. I don't really see any of the other ones doing that though, because all the other ones rely on so much information from like the first chapter and the third chapter and this and that. I think maybe Sinister Mysteries, but I never had any intent of doing that. I just wanted to make my film, and I'm not that interested in entering competitions and things like that. So it was always meant to be just what it is.
Okay. And so the film is complete. You got it done. It's all there. What was your post-production time like? How long did it take you to put together?
Okay, post-production was kind of it's always a pain in the butt, but so I had originally intended for the film to take about a year to make and then go into editing, but then we ended up doing the Indiegogo and we put this like kind of unnecessary timeline on us to edit it and everything. And all the editing ended up coming down on me just because of things that happen in life. And shutdown happened around the world. And so we had just gotten enough stuff done where I only had some pickup shoots here or there to do, which I could do with either myself or one other person, which we did with Mariana Chipoleta, who was at the end. And but I was done. The only problem with that was I didn't know how to edit, and I had never edited a thing in my life. And
I've been there.
Johnny, yeah, my buddy Johnny had edited everything before that, or Joe Sherlock edited the doll in Dark Zone 13. And so I had no idea what to do. And I was always scared because I'm kind of like, I'm not big on technology and stuff, so I always avoid that. But I knew out of necessity, I was like, well, I got to get this done, and I'm the only person that can get it done. Otherwise, it's just not going to get done. And so I taught myself how to use Premiere, and I sat there for 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day for weeks. Luckily, we had I ended up getting let go of my job for 6 weeks because of everything that happened. And so for that 6 weeks, all I was doing was editing. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. I'd sit at my desk and I'd teach myself how to edit for 4 hours. And then I would try to edit for another 4 hours and until my brain exploded. And then I would do it again the next day and the next day and the next day. And eventually after, I don't know, the first, after that 6 weeks, I went back to work and I was still editing. And I would say editing took about 3.5 to 4 months. But if I were doing that now, it probably only would have taken me a month but the whole time I was teaching myself how to edit and do wacky stuff, like the little ghost effect in chapter 5 and things like that.
Oh yeah. I thought that. I actually rewinded back. I'm like, wait, what was that? And I went back and there's a couple of those ghost images. Yeah.
And so I actually it would have it was about a 4-month process. And I was stressing it and I was sweating it, but I got it done. So, and I learned how to edit in the process, and I've done a lot of editing since. So
sometimes you just have to be thrown into it. I did a short film called Skull Evil, and I had no idea how to use the camera. I had no idea about lighting. I had no idea how to edit. I had no idea how to do credits. I had no idea, absolutely no idea at all. I was Premiere Pro was foreign to me. I bought a camera and everything, but other people used it, people who knew how to use it. And I was thrown into, that I have to do this all myself. And luckily I was around people who could help me and were very supportive, like, the cast and crew.
Yeah.
And that's, and I got done like a 15-minute film and went onto YouTube and did a lot of that stuff to learn how to use the camera and edit. And luckily, when I went to film school, I actually wanted to be an editor. So I took a lot of editing courses and, looked at films for editing. So I had that behind me and edited, but these were being edited on like 16mm film and Super 8. And so I was completely foreign to digital. So, using a flatbed, was the thing of putting the reels of film and sound on there. And that's how I edited. So I was like a grandpa going in. So yeah, it's almost the best way to do it. So I would definitely, so I can completely relate to what you had to go through with that. So yeah, I was editing at work. I would take my laptop to work and edit.
Yeah. Most of the things I know about filmmaking now, it's only because out of necessity and because I had done it to myself. I'm like, well, now you got to do it, Joe. And so these are just things I wouldn't have done. Like editing, I'm just not a computer person, but I've had to do a million other things on the computer since making Specimen 6 out of necessity. And now I think it's definitely broadened my horizons and made me a better filmmaker since it's kind of like getting the crap beat out of you to toughen you up. And so that's what filmmaking does to you. It beats the crap out of you and just makes you better.
Well, and especially if you write it into your own script. So if you have in your script that the house is on fire, you got to figure out how to make that house on fire.
Yeah, figure it out.
Yeah, and you could do it through, visual effects, or you could set up like a little smoke bomb in your house, whatever it is. But if you write it into the script and you leave it in there and you don't know how to do it, it's your own fault. So you got to learn how to, how to do it. You can't blame anybody else.
You can't. No, if you're the director of film, especially a micro budget film, so you're not just directing, you're doing 20 other things or 50 other things. Like you can, if you write it into the script, I've done that so many times. Every time I write a script, I'm like, I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure out how to do it. So yeah. And there is like in what we do, you can't blame other people. I mean, there's certain circumstances where you're like, well, that certainly just messed up my whole day. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't because I was shitty about this. But I mean, when it comes down to it, you have to accept the blame if you make a crappy film or you fuck up your day of shooting. There's always things because you're supposed to be planning. You're supposed to be making, you're making all the decisions. And so, yeah, ultimately it comes down to you.
Yeah, because in Specimen 6, there's a lot of guts, like entrails everywhere, intestines and all that stuff. So did you write that into the script, or was it just kind of like, oh, let's just make this really bloody, I'll go down to the butcher? How did that all happen?
I'll tell you exactly how that happened. So yeah, I love guts and I love gore and I love blood in my movies. And so yeah, we did in fact write that into the script. We were, right, like her entrails were exposed and yada yada. So with the guts, we actually used real guts. So what we did was we went down to the butcher and we got sheep skin, sheep intestines, right? So you can buy that to make sausages. And we have a sausage maker thing. And so we bought the sheep intestines. And like I always said, that the PETA people probably don't like me for what I do with my movies, but whatever. So we got the sheep intestines, and you can buy like $2 worth of sheep intestines, buys you like 10 feet worth of guts. It's great. And so you take that and then you put it, and then you buy a bunch of hot dogs, you buy beans and a little bit of Kool-Aid and then fake blood. And then you grind that all up, and then you slowly fit the meat and all the gross stuff, and it smells horrible. And then you fill it up into the sausage, and you get it going. And so we just make lots and lots, like 5 feet of guts. And so every time that we do that, we just make more guts. It's kind of a process, but it's totally worth it. Real guts look like real guts. So yeah.
So can you actually work in a butcher shop now? Are you like qualified? You can put that on your resume.
Probably not. No, I mean, like, where's the fake blood? No, I'd probably mess it all up.
Yeah, because it's for people who like gore. It is bloody. So there's nice.
I always tell that to.
Yeah, through throats and everything. So.
I tell my, I got some great friends that do some great special effects with the cuts and the makeup and everything. And I do probably a quarter of the effects myself, and like making the props. I made the 3 of us made the mask. It was a bit of a process. And but yeah, I always tell an actor or a friend, I'm like, hey, you want to be in this? Or somebody goes, hey, I'd really like to be in your movie. I'm like, do you like to be covered in fake blood? Because it ain't that comfortable. They're like, oh, I'm fine with that. Well, like Jimmy Stewart says in Harvey, they rarely come back, but that's okay.
Well, and I think the front of your DVD here kind of says it all. So I mean, there is a whole bunch of guts right there. You see, get it out of the light. There you go.
Cassandra
that's a lot of blood. A lot of blood. Yep. So so
we covered her. We used at least a gallon of blood that night, and Cassandra was such a trooper that evening. That was the second weekend that we were shooting the Sinister Mystery segment, and the first weekend we had shot a majority of it, and we had gotten to this point where it was probably around midnight or so, and we were going to keep shooting, and we were going to shoot her death scene, but we were all tired. I had just gotten to the point where my brain shut off. I've never really gotten to that point where I literally couldn't think of anything. And when you're directing, you're using this analytical part of your brain at full steam, right? You're making 20, 30 different decisions at the same time.
Yep.
And by the end of that day, your brain just shuts off and you can't do anything. So we actually shut down. I said, okay, we have to come back and we have to do this next weekend. And so by the time that because I would have made a bad decision or something like that where I knew it would have been shitty. And so I caught myself, and so we shut down for the night. And then the very next week, no, that was the third weekend actually. So we had shot for 2 weekends, and then and I said I needed to come back for a third weekend. And in that week, after sleeping for 3 days, I came up with the whole kill with the sign that wasn't originally in the script. Originally, we were going to we try to create a fake head, and we're going to bash her head into a tree and do all this stuff. But in that week, I said I have to come up with a kill, and we got to do it in an effective way that we can't, we don't have the time to create a head. So because we had some failed experiments. I mean, that's part of the business too, is you're trying to make these effects at work and you have no idea how to even make the effect. So what we ended up doing was we had the sign. I thought, wouldn't it be cool to slam a sign down on her and kill her in that way? And I think it turned out pretty good. So.
Well, it did, because you're kind of killing, 2 birds with 1 stone. Is you're introducing the relic of the sign, that they find, and it's already placed there. And then you just have her run past it, the killer grabs it, and then, slams it into her, into her stomach. So it really serves 2 purposes. You're showing a location, and you're also killing somebody. So it's it's a good idea when people can do that. So you're kind of foreshadowing things a little bit here with that sign. And
yeah, and it turned out great that way. And I like to think that it was that was my decision from the beginning in the writing process, but it wasn't. It was just something that needed to happen, and so I thought through we had a problem, so I had to think through the problem, and that's what we do as micro budget directors. We think through problems. So
oh yeah,
yeah, and then I got there, and it seems to be people's most favorite. Seems to be the most visceral. I've gotten a lot of reactions from people. I almost made somebody throw up once. That was great. I really enjoyed that.
Well, please explain.
Okay. Well, that one I've had a couple of people that kind of gagged a little bit, but I was showing the original trailer to a coworker, and in the trailer I'm showing the actress Michelle Stahl, who's wonderful, and I love her very much, and she's been in many things. Her and her husband Philip, and I was feeding her own guts, and I show that in the trailer, but I show it in bright color. In the movie, it's in black and white. And I was showing the trailer to a coworker, and the guy goes, and he had to walk away real quick. He couldn't make it through the whole trailer. But yeah, there's a couple people that said they almost threw up, and I'm like, oh, that means it works. I love that. I love making people barf.
Well, so you're definitely giving them the warning then, because you have, of course, the violence that's here, and you have the warning. So if you didn't already know it from this, you're definitely getting it from this.
Probably good that Tony Tony did the design on the DVD. Tony Mazziello of SOV Horror. He did that whole design and everything. I sent him a bunch of pictures. I sent him everything, but he did that whole thing. So I think it looks great. I'm really happy with it.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it looks really good. So there are some notes here that I made for each chapter that I'd like to go over a little bit. So first, who is Basement Video?
So Basement Video is owned by Tony Mazziello, who does SOV Horror, www.sovhorror.com. And he does the shot on video. He does these wonderful restorations of some lost, some classic shot on video horror films. And like Metal Noir, which was an incredible film. I recommend that. Spirit Gallery is great. He just does all these beautiful things, and he really wants to he loves these shot on video films from the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And he wants to treat them, like the kings and queens that they are, and make them the best packages. And so, but he wanted to put out some other stuff as well that weren't necessarily shot on video. And so I had known Tony for not too long. I met him last summer during the shutdown thingy. I was doing this podcast show trying to promote Specimen 6 with my friend Mariana. And I know people who know Tony, like Joe Sherlock knows Tony, and a few other friends of mine know Tony. And so I saw this thing on Facebook that Tony had wanted to be on, promote some of his SOV horror stuff. And so I was doing the show at the time. And so I reached out and I said, hey, I'm doing the show with my friend. You want to be on it? And then Tony and I just clicked, and, he's a really nice guy. And we've, talk occasionally. And we did a couple podcasts together. And then he knew I had done Specimen 6, and I had come out with a movie via I just put it on Vimeo, and I sent out some just regular DVDs to my Indiegogo backers. So he knew I didn't have a proper distribution. So he ended up coming up with the idea to do basement videos because he wanted to, just kind of help out us little guys a little bit, and then also put out, movies that weren't necessarily shot on video. So his basement videos line is kind of there's these dudes out there that just like to make nitty gritty, super low budget films, and I want to put them out. And so he knew I had this movie, so he contacted me, and he said at first, he's like, I do these basement videos, which is basically usually just the movie and a trailer. I said, well, I'd really love to put tons of stuff on there, and I'll take whatever you give me. I don't care, but I want people to see all this stuff. And so I sent him all the extra stuff. And that's why we have kind of a really loaded special edition, and in the commentary, everything like that. And so I think, that is what Basement Videos is in the long form. That's Tony Mazziello of SOV Horror fame, a Silver Bolo Award winner.
Yeah, definitely check out sovhorror.com because he's got some great stuff on there. He's a really nice guy, and I want him to stick around for a while. So, definitely check it out. So when you're, because you kept saying things that were like shot on video. What was Specimen 6 shot on that? Was it, now when you say video, do you mean like VHS or?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, so Specimen 6 was shot on whatever I could get my hands on. So I have this kind of rinky dinky old 1080 Canon that I shot my first couple films on. And it's, I don't know, it's probably 10 years old now, but it shoots in 1080. And so I used that for a majority of it. We also had our hands on a 4K camera that Johnny had got from the school that he works at. And we used that for, I don't know, maybe 20 shots. I wasn't that crazy about how it looked. And then for some insert shots and other stuff, I used the camera on my phone. So I'm just like a guerrilla, do whatever I can to get it going. So, but it was all digital though. Yeah.
Okay. So mostly Tony's stuff that's the SOV horror. That's VHS.
And yeah, that's all shot. Yeah, that's all
his
VHS.
Subdivision of the Basement videos presents. That's more just kind of shot on digital, but from people that he would like to have representing on his on his website.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I understand now. Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, he did me such a great favor saying, "Hey, do you want to put this out?" I said, "Yes, please. I would love to do that." So yeah, he's a great person. I love him.
Yeah, I'm also really happy to see that he's releasing a Joe Meredith film. So that very end.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That looks really good.
Yeah, I got all anything that Joe releases, I buy, and he actually did a poster for me for a film that hasn't been made yet because I'm having difficulties with it called Ghoul, and he's another good one too, another good person to check out. So, but all right, so now to what I had originally brought up, which was the chapters. So so chapter 1, like we said, is called Travis, and Travis has some secrets. I don't want to give away too much stuff, so I'll try to stay away from spoilers.
Yep.
But he comes off at first as a nice guy, and then he pours into a bowl Alpo, and he likes to wear tidy whities. So right there, I knew something was wrong. Nobody normal anymore wears tidy whities. So why did you choose Alpo and why the tidy whities?
Okay, so so my idea with that was like I without giving too much away, he's going down to do some nasty business in the basement, and I wanted to. You hear the sound of a woman, and I thought, well, what would he pour on this plate? Would he just take whatever can of whatever? It's like, no, it's kind of gross if like he takes out some dog food, and then you get this in your mind, like, wait, he's not giving that to the dog, and so that's why I got the Alpo dog food. And like when you just see dog food, it's probably not that bad. It probably doesn't taste too gross, but when you see it, you get this instant reaction of that makes you kind of grossed out. But the whole idea about showing Travis coming down the stairs there and taking his clothes off into his tidy whities, I wanted to show that he was like shedding like his skin and revealing his true self. And so this whole persona facade of being a nice guy, that's what he gives out to the world. But what he really is this dangerous monster of a character. And I wanted to show that in kind of a physical transformative sort of way. And so that's why he's taking his clothes off, kind of like in that movie Red Dragon, which I actually don't care about that much, but there is this really good part where like he's showing like a physical change that he's kind of feeling and going through. Like he thinks he's a dragon, and so he starts bending his muscles and stuff. And then and it's kind of like an old literary sort of thing too. You want to show in a physical way that this person is changing. In Breaking Bad, the character ends up shaving his head and then shaving his goatee, and he becomes something else.
Puts the
And so
hat on.
putting the hat on. And so
Yeah.
with my character, he's literally shedding stuff and showing his real self as he goes down into the basement. And so that was the whole idea behind that.
Yeah, because but before that, and this is one of the things I think it was done very well. Is he does seem like a really nice guy. You know, when we first meet him, he's waving to his neighbors. They want him to come over for dinner. You know, his coworker is talking about stuff he shouldn't be talking about at work. You know, and he seems kind of uncomfortable with it, and then all of a sudden he's eating and then stops, and there's the Alpo. He pulls it out and puts it down. And dog food definitely can mean two things. So the way that Travis did it, I went, uh-oh. But then if you look at something like Quentin Tarantino's, you know, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you always see Brad Pitt taking the dog food and slopping it down into the dog bowl, and the dog rushes to it and gobbles it up. And you get nothing. He's feeding his dog. He loves his dog, and he trains his dog, and you know, it's two totally different meanings for dog food. But in yours, I definitely got that, especially with how sloppy it was. You know, and I made sure to make a note. That's Alpo, and it's just bleh, right on. It's like, oh god, that's kind of gross.
I mean, this really shows you what Travis feels about other people too. Like, he doesn't, you know, he thinks that it's like any serial killer, you know. And so the whole reason behind having Travis there was I wanted to we needed this really bad dude that possibly produce more of the chemical E, the hormone E, that is my, you know, hypothetical. What we all produce is a pure sense, a pure physical thing of evil. And so yeah, I guess that's, you know, long story short, but I wanted him to be this like really gross person, but kind of I based him off of a lot of different serial killers, and I wanted him to be kind of real. I mean, we could go on for that for a while, but we probably don't have the
time. Well, the now what they were collecting, is that a real thing? What is it called? It's hormone E?
I called it, it comes with a few different names. So this is kind of integral to the plot. So, cause I have this whole world, and this was part of what I was writing in my notes, in my chapters years before this movie, was I wanted to come up with this thing. It's like, how do you get pure evil? And it's pure evil, an actual physical thing. And so I came up with this hypothetical that we have possibly a gland that produces a hormone, and chemical or hormone E in this form is something that is so minute that you can barely even see. You probably couldn't even see it with the eye. You'd have to see it underneath a microscope or something. But it's so potent that it's like antimatter, so that every single person in the world creates this naturally, this hormone that is basically our sense of evil. So if you ever feel that sense of like stealing candy from a baby, that's because you're maybe producing a little bit of this, but not everybody like acts on that impulse to do it. And so the instant that happens, it just that you think, well, I'm not going to do that, and you've given it too much time, so it just disappears. Now, however, in certain characters like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy or BTK, these people, they have this overwhelming urge to kill and kill and kill and kill, right? I mean, Ted Bundy went on these spree kills, and he was just crazy about it. Like, he couldn't stop himself. All these people, they can't stop themselves. And the more they do it, the more they want to do it more. And so what I was thinking is like, well, maybe they're producing, these are kind of the freaks of nature that produce overabundance amounts of hormone E. Like, they're literally, their bodies are creating this evil, and they have to, you know, act upon that urge. They cannot. And so the whole idea was Marissa Gray wants to find somebody, and this is her hypothesis, is that we do create it in such a way so she, you know, finds this person, and so that's why that person exists in the movie, is they need somebody that naturally creates a great deal of hormone E. And then of course later on she takes that hormone and reproduces it scientifically into larger forms, because we need to create this slasher killer that is literally, in every sense of the word, pure evil, physically, everything else.
Okay, so there could be some lab out there that we don't know about that has test tubes of Dahmer Gacy, Bundy, just kind of sitting there that has this hormone E in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah, and so that was my idea.
Okay. Well, that's cool. All right, I like that. And then in chapter 2, so I would like the mask. The killer's mask is unique looking. How did that come about?
So the mask is very important, but it doesn't necessarily make up the slasher killer himself. And that was always my intent. I think the mask is important for any slasher killer to have. Not every slasher killer does have a mask, but I think it's one of those things symbolically that we all have too. I deal a lot with masks. Like in the first chapter, Travis, what we see right off the bat, that's his mask. And he takes his mask off to reveal who his true self is. Well, this mask for the slasher killer, it's important I wanted it to look visually appealing, because you can't just have just a regular boring mask like in Bloody Murder or Bloody Murder 2, where they're just like, look, it looks like a little baby doll mask, whatever. You're like, that's kind of tired and boring and stuff like that. People, they're like, all right, it looks like trees or something like that. It's like, but why would they have it? Why? I mean, it looks cool, but you have to have a reason to have it, right? And so with this mask, there is an actual huge story behind it. And I was only barely able to touch upon it in this one, but we explore it in full in part 2. So the mask itself is made from the flesh and part 2, good sir. Yes, we will be coming out. We will be start shooting that in September. And so nice. Part 2 is all about the final girl and the mask, and we delved into that big time. And I wanted the mask to look really interesting, but I wanted it to kind of enhance the killer too. And so we discover a little bit about that in the psychic portion, that it gives him those dream walking abilities. So his physical form is that he's just pure chemical E, he's pure evil, but he's also part mechanical and this and that because he's his creation of science. He's a Frankenstein's monster. The mask itself actually gives him these other abilities. And if you watch the extra features on the disc, they kind of explain a little more what this mask does and where it comes from. But the idea is that it's literally made from the flesh and bone of a headhunting shaman from like South America. And so there's this huge like history and lore behind it. And so those little markings, those are actually skin tattoos. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because this is one of those rare films where you don't see the killer getting the mask. Like, he just doesn't want, he just appears with it.
We would have shown more. I see, that's the whole thing is just timing wise, I was really planning on doing a 7th short that explored the whole mask thing, and it just didn't happen. I think it's also kind of a good thing, because the part 2 will be completely unlike this or anything else that you've seen, but it's going to be digging into the mask and my whole hypothesis behind the final girl and what she means as far as the Specimen 6 and the slasher killer, because I didn't get to explore that either, and this one is the final girl.
Okay. And in that, that's where they find the camp sign. So they find the evidence of the camp. And this one is called, because I didn't mention the name of it, the Sinister Mystery. And I did notice, so maybe you could explain a little bit of this, blurred products that were in like the bar and stuff. So were you thinking at first we could film it with no problem? We wouldn't, or was it crap?
I was not thinking at all. It wasn't until later on that like I was editing, and then I was doing I was editing the scene. And then I started looking around. I was like, oh, well, shit. I was like, I can't show any of this shit. Not really, anyway, unless, I mean, it's not a big deal because it's only a $1,700 film. But there's like, I got access to one bar that took a bit of convincing. We're able to use it. And then it turned out that it was a very difficult situation because there's mirrors all over the place. You know how that is for a filmmaker. You're like, I can't have that mirror there. I can't have that there. And then I realized, oh, there's product placement every 2 freaking inches. So yeah, the blurriness was just like, this is gonna look cheap as shit, but I can't show it. So that's it.
Yeah, because that's and have you seen Birdemic?
No, not yet.
They go into a it's a great film. You should see it, and if you get it on Blu-ray, it's brilliant. But they do go to a convenience store, and then everything is just blurred out. You know, it's just like, oh, here, have a snurkers, because they can't actually say it. So it's like smackers. Here's the smackers that's all blurred out. And so I always find that stuff. But some filmmakers don't care. I mean, they'll just fully show it and not care.
I mean, I've seen that too, but it was just like, and actually I called up Joe Sherlock about that too when I was editing. I was like, oh man, what do you do? He's like, well, you could either just not care or you could try to blur it out. And I was like, I don't think a lot of these places are going to be hunting me down because I'm just this little guy that's not making any money off of this movie. And what's the chances of people seeing this movie? So I just like, well, I just want to do my due diligence just in case. And that's why I spent 2 freaking days of editing learning how to kind of blur stuff out.
Yeah, I have to do that for myself on something for YouTube that they keep banning me on. It's like, fine, I'll just blur out her boobs. You know, you guys don't care about swearing and murders, but you care about boobs,
right? Yeah, but boobs, even though boobs are probably the most natural, greatest thing, in the world.
Somebody's got an issue with that. So, and then
God bless boobs.
Yeah, God bless boobs. Now, what about the soundtrack? It kind of changes per chapter, so you have some interesting choices that you put into each chapter. How does that work?
Well, I did that because I was playing with a lot of public domain music because I didn't have any other choices. But they does change because I wanted each chapter to feel like a separate emotional short in itself. And so I wanted the main character for each one of those things to kind of have their own sound too. And so if you notice in the experiment, I have this thing that's kind of Fiona's theme. And then in certain aspects, I kind of slowed down the music for certain scenes, certain shots, and then I sped it up for other shots and I blended it with other shots. So I wanted each one to have a particular feel and each character to kind of feel unique. And so that's why I use particular songs the way that I did, particular music. So it was very intentional with everything I did. I probably learned more about music editing doing this than I did about film editing, to be quite honest.
So that's a good thing to learn. So what you did is I don't think like film schools would teach, and I did go to film school, and it was useful, but not totally useful, because I've watched a lot of films where the music just goes from one side to another, like it doesn't really stop. Like there's music means different things, just like editing does, and some filmmakers, especially ones that don't know the craft very well, will literally just take one piece of music and it's throughout the entire movie. And you just, it's like, I'm not getting anything out of this. And I've heard this, this tone in the music like 100 times now. So I really like that you do that. And that's why I wrote it down, because I wanted to point it out that, oh, sure, you're welcome.
Yeah, that's very intentional. Yeah. With all of my work since Specimen 6, and I've done a lot of stuff, is like the music is very intentional because, when I'm editing something, it's like maybe like 80% is how just using your basic editing knowledge, like how do I take these 3 shots because I have 2 close-ups and a master, and then how do I want to edit it together, and yada yada yada, what all of that garbage. But 20% of editing is emotion for me, and so every single time I'm doing a scene, it has to feel emotionally correct for me to I'm like, because sometimes I'll film something like even a piece of nudity, like the short that I did for your film, for your anthology coming up. I have this whole thing. I have this conversation with the character in the beginning where she's on the phone with this other gal, and I have this whole shower scene because I love shower scenes and I love boobs, and and that's why I love Joe Sherlock movies, because you can't get enough shower scenes in those. And so I had actually filmed a shower scene, and I had filmed this whole other side of the conversation, But then I realized that when I was editing, I was like, it actually distracts from the movie itself to put the shower scene in there. So I cut it, and then I was like, you know what? It even distracts so much to show this other person, because I wanted to stay inside the character's head and make us wonder, like, is this person sane, or is she starting to unravel a little bit? Is this stuff really going on? And so with editing, it's and the music, which is just, it goes with it, is like it goes with emotion, and editing is, when you're doing it, at least 20% emotion.
Yeah, and as an example, when I was doing Maximus 2, Mike Conway, who did the music for that, the soundtrack's perfect. It sounds kind of Danny Elfman-ish. It's very dark. I love the soundtrack. But, and I don't have a problem saying this because he brought it up in the audio commentary and I wasn't going to, but he did, so I don't have a problem saying it. But there's one scene where our lead character, Sarah, she turns and her dead boyfriend is right there. She drops a coffee mug. And he wanted, when she turns, the music to go like dun 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 dun. And I said, no, leave it out. Like, she turns, he goes, Sarah, and she drops it, then it cuts to the music. I'm like, you're taking away from her emotion, you're taking away from him even saying Sarah, because you can barely see it. And it's not meant to be a jump scare. It's just, it's meant to startle you, but not like throw you back with loud music. And I did fight with him on it, and I got my way because I directed it. And but to this day, that there's still that argument there that he feels that he's right and I feel that I'm right. And in music, I'm not saying that he doesn't, but I don't think a lot of people understand editing. I don't think, because that's his main thing, is he is a director too, but he does a lot of soundtracks. So I don't want to take that away from him, but a lot of people don't know how to edit. A lot of people don't know how to edit music. And you need to use it in places where it's appropriate. And I've seen enough movies where, once again, just people, they feel that they can just pick up a camera and shoot, and they don't know what a master shot is. They don't know what a close-up is or what a medium is. They don't know that. Or the music is blaring. Like I can't hear anything that people are saying. Your film is so low budget that you can't afford subtitles. So I've missed an entire scene because I can't tell what they're saying because your music is so loud. And so it's I don't know, maybe take a film class or something. I don't know. It's weird.
I think it's really interesting. I mean, people watch a lot of movies, right? And so they instantly think that I could make a movie. Movies are easy to make, and then which is not true at all. It's probably one of the harder things. Like, I don't make hardly any money. I don't really make any money off of this. You just do it because you love it, but it kicks your ass every time. And the more you know about it, it doesn't make it any easier. It just makes your product look better and everything like that. But no, people, they think all you need to do is, and I've met a lot of people that say this, are like that, where they just, I've seen thousands of movies, I can make a movie. And then they try, and then they don't make it much past the door before they stop and never do it again, because they realize that it's not that easy. And there's a million things I could tell people, that I've learned over the years. I didn't know what I was doing when I did The Last Temptation of Bible Boy. I can say that right now. I had no idea. So that was a crash course, and I knew a little bit because I had taken a couple film appreciation classes, and I had read a bunch of books that said two-shot this, master this. And so I had this vague idea how to shoot, but it was still shitty. Like, I made a funny, shitty movie with The Last Temptation of Bible Boy, but I had no idea what I was doing. But every single time, even now, after I've done, I don't know, 8 or 9 different things, I still go back and I still try to learn things. And I'm like, I have to refresh on certain things. Or it's not my favorite thing to do because it's really hard, actually, but I think it's a necessity. So if any wannabe amateur filmmaker that you haven't made something yet, before you go make your thing, go pick one scene out of a movie and then watch that scene 20 times and break down each and every single shot and teach yourself, how did this person do this? And so, draw all the pictures and do all the hard work and learn that one scene, and then go shoot something.
Yeah, and what
So
you're talking about is film school 101. So that's, what, of course, Hitchcock, the bomb in the suitcase. The audience knows that the bomb is there, but the people in the cafe don't. Yep. And so many people can't do that correctly because they don't understand it. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because there's even the this is film school 101, the 180 degree, rule. And I broke it in Meat Massacre 4. I broke it by looking over two people's shoulders and doing it on the same side of the shoulder. I broke that rule, and I didn't even realize it, because being the director and doing 16 things, 20 things at once, I didn't realize I was doing that.
You don't think about it at first.
Yeah, you don't until you're in the editing room. But
here's the thing about
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about the 180 rule. Here's the thing about any filmmaking rules. As long as you know how to do it and what the rule means, then there's different ways you can break it to make it look good. So you can break the rules, just know what the rule is and how to do it in the first place. I break the 180 rule all the time, but I know how to fuss it, and I know what it means, and I know this rule and that rule. You have to know the rules to be able to break them in the first place. And so I would say that for anybody that's about to make a movie, think like, go read a film book or go watch, really study something, learn the rules. Because like any painter, like Picasso, he could paint very realistically, and he went to school, and his early stuff, the blue period, all that. And before that, he did lifelike stuff. He learned all the rules until later on when he started breaking them all over the place. And I think that is very much a filmmaking thing too. Learn all your rules, know how to bend those rules, and then you can break them, knowing what the consequences are going to be. But if you want those consequences, then just make sure you're smart enough to do it.
Yeah, you have to know how to defend yourself on it. I mean, just look at, to go back to Tarantino, I mean, he'll do a 10-page monologue for Samuel L. Jackson, and that's unheard of. But it's so well written, you forgive it. You don't care. Stephen King, because a lot of people consider him to be a bad writer because he does run-on sentences and stuff, but he knows why he's doing it. He's not a bad writer. He's breaking the rule because he knows what he's doing. You have to know how to do it first, and then break it.
That's exactly, especially with Quentin Tarantino's language. There's a lot of good, writer directors. They know what they're doing, and every little bit of dialogue serves the plot. It doesn't throw away. There's a lot of like lower budget films, or just like, even major Hollywood movies where you got this nonsense throwaway dialogue. And I've been guilty of it when I first started too, but now when I write, I make sure that if a line or a sentence or whatever doesn't, serve the plot, or if it repeats what I basically already said, I'll throw it away. So that's another rule too. Don't be afraid to throw away what you wrote. A lot of people love their shit, and they don't realize that their shit is shit. So,
yeah, I watched the film recently where somebody, within a couple minutes, repeated the same line of dialogue, and I thought, is this a mistake, or is this how it was written? Because it was literally the same dialogue, and I didn't get it. It's like, no, I don't know. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure. So, because it wasn't necessary to repeat it. I think
sometimes people. Well, I know it's part of the writing process too. Is like I do that with my scripts, and I do multiple 4, 5, 6 drafts on something, and I realize that I'm like, I basically already said this 2, 3 sentences before that, and so I just cut it. I'm like, but it sounds so pretty, purple prose, but I cut it because it doesn't need to be there. So I think everybody's makes these mistakes. The thing is, have we done the work to fix those mistakes before we get to the screen? And so that's the whole thing, is make sure that you're like making if you're making mistakes, just learn from the mistakes and make sure that you don't do it again. And so that's what the filmmaking thing is. I'm constantly making mistakes, but I'm trying to learn from it.
Exactly.
And so also, and study other people. If you get a chance to be on a movie set with somebody else that's done it a handful of times, watch them. I've been very lucky that I've been on set with Joe Sherlock, several times now. And every time I am, I just watch him, and even if I'm just acting in it, I watch him do whatever else, and I make sure that I'm learning at the same time. So any chance you get to learn filmmaking, do it. And it doesn't matter how many projects you've done, you're gonna be learning as you go, and just make sure that you're not I don't stuck on yourself, as a lot of filmmakers might be.
Yeah, don't go wander off and like text somebody or whatever it is. And I 100% agree with you. Is I've worked with Drew Marvick. I've worked with Heidi Moore out here, who's works with Trauma. I was lucky enough to be a production assistant, with Charles Band on Evil Bong 777. Worked with Joe Lujan out here, who did the Immortal Wars. And even though I've already done stuff and they know that, and I'm kind of there to be like a little MacGyver type guy, like, if they need help here, I'll go do it. Here, over there, I'll go do it.
Yeah.
I watch them like a hawk. And it's all, and you could take stuff from the worst directors to the best directors, and you're still going to take something away from it. And you just have to watch and see what they do. And you just improve that way. And because I was very curious, how does Charles Band direct? And so luckily I worked with the camera crew. And so I was able to kind of watch what he does. And if you don't take advantage of that, you're losing out, because there's your film school. That's a film school that you're being paid to be at.
Yeah, right. That's the best film school.
Yeah. So with that being said, so now chapter 3, the experiment. Okay. So we find out that this lab is using prisoners, and also virus was brought up. So what's going on there?
Yes. So I wanted to show that Marissa Gray was testing the product, but also developing it as she went. And so it was just kind of an interesting little thing where she accidentally manipulates the hormone into being viral at some point. And so it just kind of served the purpose of the story. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. Well, maybe this was the whole idea that it's not new to slasher films, but the transference of evil idea, and so Halloween does it. It has done it a handful of times, where and Friday the 13th, like in part 4 at the end, where Tommy Jarvis like turns towards the camera, Corey Feldman, and then all of a sudden you think he's evil. And then in part 5, they kind of explore that quite a bit, where you think, is Tommy Jarvis the killer this whole time? And then so that's that transference of evil, like the Nietzschean staring into the abyss, and does that abyss stare back at us and change us in such a way? And so I wanted to show that in a physical way as well. And so how do you show that you're being affected or changed or becoming evil? It's by being infected by evil. And so that's simply it. It's a MacGuffin more than anything.
Okay.
And it serves the plot.
Yeah. Okay. And then for now, chapter 4, the psychic. So the one thing I have to ask, is the assistant Torgo?
Yeah, it was inspired by that. So have you seen Manos Returns? So
I haven't seen Returns. I want to, but I've seen Manos, the original many times.
Okay, so it is highly inspired by that. And Joe Sherlock worked on Manos Returns, and I'm good friends with Tanya Atomic, who is the director of Manos Returns. And of course, Jackie Newman Jones is the also from the original, and Tom Newman Jones is in Manos Returns as well, all from the original. So it is, in all rights and intents, it is the official sequel. So knowing that, and knowing who my friends are, and loving Manos the Hands of Fate and Manos Returns, it was very much inspired by Torgo. Yeah,
because I noticed the way he talked and the jacket. I'm like, that's Torgo, and good for you for putting Torgo in there. Torgo lives.
That was my love for Manos the Hands of Fate. Yes,
and you have to have
Manos
love
Returns,
for that.
of course. So I highly,
of course.
Yeah,
I really want to watch that.
If you love good D movies, you love that. Yeah,
I'll definitely have to check it out. And the characters are linked, because the one woman goes to the psychic and talks about her sister, who is the people who are doing like the podcast. So now we definitely know, these are linked more than just like the scientists and stuff. So this is, and so, and now this was the weird part, and I like this because, like I said, this thing takes twists and turns and goes up and down. So then the sister that's like the psychic ends up going into the other sister's world and watching her like put on like the sunscreen and all that type of stuff. So now we're getting, so the sister goes into the other sister's world, which now we're kind of getting into some weird kind of time travel stuff. So is that time travel? What exactly is that?
Okay, so what that is I wanted to kind of show that it's this purgatory sort of world that bleeds over into the dream realm. So this goes into the mask thing again. So this is an ability I wanted to show for the mask, but we were never explicit as far as what the abilities do. And I like to, take my viewers on a roller coaster ride, but I don't like to just like spoon feed them their entertainment too. I like to make them work a little bit. And so I held back a little bit. So the idea is that it is this purgatory that Specimen 6 has killed the people, and the mask kind of gives him the ability to keep their souls where they are. And this is another thing that we explore in the sequel, where we go into great detail about what he does and how the masks go. We're very explicit in the sequel, only because it's a completely different entity in itself and a different way that I'm going to be telling the story. So yeah, it is supposed to be a purgatory mixed with dreams. Actually, in the main inspiration for this is the Corey Feldman movie Dream a Little Dream and Dream a Little Dream 2, and how that kind of blends in and out of is it dream, is it reality, is it something else sort of thing. It's just kind of my love of the 80s.
I never thought I would
also,
ever hear Dream a Little Dream, Dream a Little Dream Part 2 for Specimen 6. I would have never put the three together, I guess.
That was my big one, and kind of part 2 quite a bit actually, where he puts on the sunglasses and then it gets really trippy, and yeah. So yeah, the big inspiration behind that was I wanted this mask to have powers, but the whole thing about the dream sequence thing was, my love for Dream a Little Dream. I just really like that movie. So,
interesting, very interesting. So then, now part 5 also gets kind of trippy in a way. With you do a lot of like picture in picture. So part 5 is Unbound, and there's like at times there's 4 screens going. At times there's one big screen with like a little square in it. And what was your decisions for doing that?
So that's kind of an interesting story from the beginning. That was actually the most difficult thing to edit, in the fact that I had, it was relatively new to me editing. So this was a few months after I had kind of started teaching myself how to do it and everything. God, I mean, if you had seen the timeline between the audio and the video, it would have made your mind melt, what I had to do to make that all happen. And I know better, but that I probably learned more about editing because of that. So the inspiration behind it, like I said, that little story was the original chapter, but it had taken about 6 or 7 changes to get to that point. But the actual main inspiration for that movie was a Mark Polonia film.
Oh.
And it was, and not in a way that you think, though. Okay. So I think Mark is a good director, and he's made a lot of good films, right? But the film that I'm referencing is not a good film. And I accidentally, so it was called Alien Surveillance. And I had originally ordered this other Alien movie online through somebody, and they had sent me Alien Surveillance instead. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll watch it anyway. Oh, Mark Polonia directed it. And right, I'm like, okay. And the whole movie takes place with like kind of security cameras, but nothing is happening for, I don't know, 80, 90 minutes. Literally nothing. There's like a couple times where like an alien kind of pops up in the corner, and then things go a little weird, and then there's this like people up in the corner that are having this party. It's a terribly boring film and possibly one of the most boring films I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
Next to Gus Van Sant's Jerry, which is literally just two people walking in the desert for 2 hours. And so if you fell asleep in Alien Surveillance, a half hour later, you wouldn't miss anything, literally a thing you wouldn't have missed.
Oh,
And
wow.
so,
That's
but I
funny.
thought, yeah, I mean, I mean, I think Mark Poloni is a good director, but this is definitely him saying like, I need a little money and to put the least amount of effort into something possible. But he had a good idea there. And I thought after 90 minutes of being bored and you know, feeling like I don't know what I'm doing with my life right now, but I paid for this movie. I paid $15 for it, so I was going to suffer through it one way or the other. So I thought this is kind of, and it stuck with me. I was like, it's kind of interesting, this idea that he had. And I think I was watching it during lockdown, so I was really bored. And what if I did do this the surveillance thing and I had actual stuff happening? So it's a very short. I could adapt this. No, it wasn't during lockdown that I shot it. No, I'm sorry, it was right before that. But I thought, well, I need to shoot this short very quickly, and need to do it very cheaply. So we probably spent $50 on it, and I need to take this whole thing that I had written, which is this, I think it was long, beautiful prose of a script, and then I need to break it down into the most basic components. And so I changed everything. I ripped 90% out of it, but I needed to keep the core concept that Specimen 6 was in this tank and that some weird shit happens and he gets unleashed on the world. And so I took the nugget of an idea that Mark Polonia had, and then I just applied it to my 4-minute little short, and that was it. So yeah, so thank you, Mark Polonia.
Yeah, I'm a fan of his. I have not seen that film. I've actually don't even know the title. I thought I knew most of his movies, but I do have almost an entire shelf dedicated to Mark and his friends, basically. So that includes, David Sterling.
Well, if you really want, I'll send it to you. Yeah. Yeah, if you really want, I'll send it to you because I'm not going to watch it again.
Yeah. I don't know. With that review, I'm not sure if I want to or not. So,
You're not going to find a pause. I've looked at other reviews, and mine was probably the most kind. So,
oh, wow. Now, in let's see. Then Chapter 6 is Hunting Grounds. That has a woman in red in it. That is my note. Woman in red. What's the woman in red?
At the very beginning?
Yeah.
At the very beginning. That's Mariana Chipoletta. That's my very good friend, Mariana Chipoletta. She's a beautiful woman, big-breasted, beautiful woman. We've known each other since we've known each other maybe 7 years now or so. And we just good friends that we did a podcast together, and we've she was in Let's Play Dolls. That's the short on that disc. And
okay.
So that was the whole show. We had written this whole thing with a monster hunter, and we had tried to shoot it, and it was raining, and we just had a lot of issues, and none of the footage turned out. It was all garbage. And so we had gone into lockdown, and I thought, God, I don't have a thing for Hunting Grounds for In Hell. So I had dreamed up maybe 20 different angles of how to do this until I finally just asked Mariana, and I said, hey, could you come shoot this thing and you'll be playing Aphrodite? And she goes, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm like, and then I'm just gonna like shoot your boobs a little and then have you look pretty. She goes, yeah, it's cool. So so the whole idea was that I wanted to like mix different mythologies and religions and things like that. And it's not explicit in the film, but that's Aphrodite actually. And so she's fawning over these two lovers, and she gets pissed at Specimen 6 for killing them. And so and the thing is, like, isn't Aphrodite a god, and isn't God a god, and things like that? And how would they allow Specimen 6 to kill them if they had these other divine plans for them? Well, that just shows that Specimen 6 is this unnatural being. He is this thing that's created from man. He does not belong in this world. he doesn't belong in heaven or hell or anywhere. And so that was my whole idea, was I wanted to have this goddess there, and she's just one of the prettiest girls I know. So and she's a very dear friend of mine. So I said, hey, you want to be in this? And that was the whole idea. And they also had to, completely replace this entirely different plot line that I had written and tried to shoot beforehand.
And of course, you also have Lucifer is a woman, which is rare.
True. Yeah. So yeah, Lucifer is, and I guess we're just spilling the beans on here. Lucifer is Tanya Atomic. So she is a great filmmaker herself. She directed Manos Returns and a whole bunch of other movies, and she's a very good actor. She's been in tons of Joe's stuff now, and she's a good friend of mine. And we knew of each other vaguely a little bit before we started to shoot Specimen 6, and then she had called me up. And this was actually, so In Hell or Unchained, Unbound, Hunting Grounds was actually written for Tanya Atomic specifically in mind. So she had called me up and said, hey, I know you're doing this movie, because I've been promoting it like crazy. And she said, if you got like an extra role, like something small, I'd love to do that. And I was already a big fan of Tanya because of Manos Returns and a bunch of other stuff. And so she and I said, well, shit, Tanya Atomic wants to be in my movie. I'm not gonna have her just like walk on screen and say like hi and then walk off. I'm like, I want her to be like, have something, a meaty thing to chew on. And so I thought, what's a better thing to chew on than Lucifer themselves? And so and then I started coming up with the idea of In Hell, and I wrote it with I went over to my friend Amy Christine Moline, and I said, who I write with a lot, because we just have our minds kind of meld together, and we kind of come together. And I said, we need to write this thing for Tanya Atomic. I want to be a great thing. And so we wrote this whole In Hell sequence, and we had and I said I wanted to go all Shakespearean and everything, and so that's what we wrote for Tanya. So yeah, Lucifer is a woman in my book. Of course,
men would agree.
You ever had a woman? Yeah, if you ever had a woman get mad at you, you want to, fear evil. Yeah, there you go.
Well, hey, Kevin Smith thinks God is a woman, so he thinks, he's Alanis Morissette. So might as well go, both directions, up and down. And then my last question on the chapters would be, Hell is in like black and white. Is that intentional, or like some of it's in black and white?
It was intentional. So from the get-go, even before I wrote the script, and I had no idea how I was going to film the script, but I had this idea where I had originally I was going to build a stage and have this kind of German expressionistic sort of Cabinet of Dr. Caligari sort of thing going on. And I was and so it was always initially going to be black and white in my mind. And that vision changed a little bit, but from the get-go, I love old black and white films, and I love the silent horror classics. And so that was always F.W. Murnau and whatnot that was stuck in my brain, and I wanted to homage that a little bit. And I just love black and white, and I think when you go into Hell, how oppressive is it that you're stripped of all color and meaning, and then you have that twist at the end when you do show Lucifer, and it's bright and it's crazy. And I wanted people to see this kind of as like a third man sort of thing. And so this was my Orson Welles moment, and that's why I had Tanya right at the end. And so for those who know Tanya, if they're seeing the film, all of a sudden they're like, well, shit, there you go. And so that was the whole thing. And a lot of the the inspirations behind that was Tanya had this a short film that she had done that was beautiful and in black and white, that was very inspirational. And then of course Eraserhead was very inspirational, and David Lynch. And so it was my David Lynch moment. It was also my third man moment. It was my Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. There's 5, 6, 7 inspirations that put that into there.
Cool. So
And that's the story.
now, ending credits. So I got two things. One, there is simply a V that pops up on the screen near the end.
Accidental.
Ah,
I don't know how to do. I was learning how to do credits, and I thought, well, my name ends with V, so maybe people will think that. No, completely an accident. I was trying to do. I mean, that was a week's worth of work there. I'd never done credits before, and then all of a sudden, I see there's a V at the end, and I said, "Fuck it, I'm done."
Where I'm thinking it's some hidden message or something, you know, and it's like, ooh, V, what does that mean? You know, oh, you know, if you stay long enough, V means something. That's funny.
Yeah,
And then you mentioned spilling the beans. So what can you spill on part 2?
Okay, part 2. I can spill quite a bit here, you know, as I do. So part 2, I was originally hoping to have done by the end of this year, but it won't happen because of everything that else that happened. And then I ended up actually filming maybe 5 or 6 different things since I intended to start this one. So anyway, I've been writing the script with Thomas Duder and Mariana Chipoletta helped a little bit. And so what I'll be doing with part 2, it's actually going to be called Specimen 6 Blood for Blood. And it's going to be vastly different. And we've written the script. So this is different than what we did before. I have the script in hand. I can show you that right there. So this is my director's script of Specimen 6 2 Blood for Blood.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It's not, so it's written. It's crazy. I have other short kind of things that go into this and that, but the main story is about a final girl who encounters Specimen 6 at the beginning, and she becomes changed in some way, and to go back through heroic journey to go face Specimen 6 at the end. And in that time, I throw so much information about the world of Specimen 6 at you. We learn that there's not just one mask. We learn that there's 4 masks.
Oh.
We learn the whole story behind the Anna Bobby mask. We learn tons and tons. We get introduced to other characters, a little bit of time traveling, this and that. It's nothing like Specimen 6, but also nothing like anything else you've ever seen before. I got some really weird, trippy shit. I'm working with a lot of people that Joe Sherlock works with. Joe's helping me out a little bit, and a bunch of other people. And one of his stars is going to be my star. And so there's a lot of interflow back and forth. If you know Bob Olin, he's helping on. He's jumped on as a producer. So there's a lot that's going to be happening. So Specimen 6 Blood for Blood is going to be a little different too, because I'm not going to just like go and dump it online and do all that stuff. We're actually going to be taking it on the road. So I have this whole thing. So I'm going to be working on it for the next year and a half. And we're starting filming beginning of September. And I'm going to try to get it done in just over a year, but we'll see how that goes. But we'll be taking it on the road. It's not going to be found anywhere other than on my person. And we're going to take it on tour, and we're going to go to different bars, and I'm going to go convince a bunch of different drive-in theaters. I'm going to make sure that this gets shown all over the place in front of people, and then we'll see what happens afterwards. But I really want to take it to crowds of people, and I'm going to take it to small towns. So it's not going to go because the cities are kind of harder to want people to get to. I know I don't want to go to the bigger cities and all that stuff now for all this stuff. So I'm going to be taking it. It's going to be called my Horror in the Heartland Tour. So I'm going to be taking it to small towns across America, and I want people making out in the back and getting drunk and throwing up in the front. I want people enjoying the horror movie as a horror movie is supposed to be. So this will be the great American slasher film experience as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to have gals in bikinis. I'm going to have Specimen 6 riding on in a dirt bike. So I want this to be, America at its core. So that's what this is going to be. And then I'll release it on DVD and all that stuff. So that's my plan. That's part 2.
That is a plan. I mean, that sounds awesome. Sounds very old school, very endless summer,
That's what I figured.
So.
Yeah, I think that's what you have to do nowadays because we're so limited as far as like movie distribution. You can you can get it out there to a million different platforms, but how do you get people to watch it and everything like that? And so it's hard. Like when I was promoting Specimen 6, the first one, I was putting in hundreds of hours doing these live specials, doing all this stuff, and you don't get that much response behind it. And then I put it on Vimeo, promoting that. But Vimeo is such a difficult sort of platform. Like, you can type in the direct name of something, and then it will give you a million other things, but not that direct thing. So it's kind of like, you can go watch Specimen 6, the first one, on there right now, but I'd say you have to go find the link on my Facebook and all that stuff, because you can try typing in Specimen 6. You'll get a bunch of stuff, but probably not Specimen 6. And so my idea is, like, there's like a filmmaker, especially as small guys, we have such a difficult time getting our movies out to the world. We got to do it the old way. So we got to go, and I'm pretty good at like talking to people. So, I'm going to go, I'm going to go on the radio at these towns and say, I'm going to be over at whoever's bar, and I'm going to be showing my new film, Specimen 6, Blood for Blood. And I would love it if you came over and drink a bunch of beer with me and watch my movie, and then, go, there's 301 drive-ins in the United States right now. All I have to do is convince one of those drive-ins to let me do this. And the thing is, drive-ins is going to be a big thing. I went during the whole lockdown, the one place I was able to go see a movie and feel that connectedness with other people, I went and saw the original Ghostbusters at a drive-in theater. The place was packed.
Nice.
People loved it. It was a great feeling. And so you have to go back in this day of modern future garbage. You have to go back. You have to go back to when Texas Chainsaw Massacre was being shown in the back room of places and people felt dirty about it. I want my movie to, I want people to feel dirty about my movie. I want them to acid, and I want people to show up like, oh, you remember that time that we went and made out in the back of this car, yada yada, and then George went over there and threw up, and then there's this fight over here that was happening. I mean, that's what you do. You got to make these memories with people, and a movie is a perfect thing to make a memory with.
Sure.
But if you can't that movie in front of anybody, you could drop it online. I was very, very lucky with the first Specimen 6 that Tony, wanted to put it out, and Tony is who he is. And so I was very lucky that it gets to be shown out there with people because of the distribution deal. But I was friends with Tony, and so I'm lucky in that regard. But I'm like, I was thinking about in general, because I was listening to these interviews with J.R. Bookwalter and all these guys that are like, they had it big back in Blockbuster days, but they were doing exactly what I'm doing. They're doing exactly what Joe's doing, and all of us, and you and everybody. It's like, what do you do to get that back out to people? If the big guys, in our field are having a hard time putting their movies out. Chris Seaver is having a hard time. He finally got this thing with Makeflix for his movie The Weird Seas, which is very good, which is awesome, but he's having as hard a time as the rest of us. So what do you got to do? You got to go all the way back. You got to go over to the AM stations, the FM stations. You got to go, paste your thing all over these small towns, because there's a lot of small towns across America, and there's a lot of horror fans and a lot of people who don't even know that they're horror fans, but they're not going to the big cities to go see these things. They're not going to big multiplexes in the bigger, areas. They're just at home. They might not have cable. Over off not too far away from me, but kind of in the boonies, that's where Specimen 6 has done the best before, Tony picked it up. And it's all these people that just ride on their, ATs, whatever, make out with their girlfriends, and their cable doesn't work very well and their internet doesn't work very well. But I've had like 5 DVDs circulating and people are loving it out that way. So it's like, what's the best way that I'm going to do? I'm going to go find a bar, and I'm going to go invite all those people to watch my new movie. And so that's what we're doing with Specimen 6 too, Blood for Blood.
Wow, that sounds great. I mean, that sounds, that's very grassroots. I mean, it's really amazing. So that's a good idea. So yeah, because those venues aren't there anymore. All the stuff with like, J.R. Bookwalter, they had Hollywood Video and stuff to go to, or you could buy a VHS tape directly from them, but you had to look at it in like Fangoria magazine. You could only that type of thing. So yeah, no, that's a great idea. So and so good luck with that. I mean, I hope that everything works out. It should.
Well, I'll tell you, the best 3 things in the world are blood, boobs, and beasts, and we got to get them out there to people. Otherwise it gets like just piled on of all the other garbage. Just give me my blood, boobs, and beasts. That's all I want.
The 3 B's. So yeah.
Yep.
That is true. Well, and also, because you brought up your the DVD circulating, is one, it has a great audio commentary from beginning to end. So some
Thank
of
you.
it, you're welcome. Some of it we do talk about here, but there's a lot of stuff we didn't talk about that's on the commentary. So definitely check that out, when you buy the DVD. The video journals are really good. So those give you some additional information. So I like those, and I like that you put them on there. The one thing though, and it's a small thing that I really, really liked, because I hate when people do it this other way, is you had behind the scenes still gallery. Most people just do still gallery of pictures from the film that we've already seen. It drives me nuts.
Oh yeah, that's boring. No, I actually, I probably have 100 more that aren't on that. Yeah. No, we had and I thank everybody that worked on my movie, because as Joe Sherlock says, us directors, we put on our director blinds when we're working, and so we don't think about these things, and I never think about taking behind the scenes pictures. But I was very lucky that all my friends and my actors and everybody were taking a lot of behind the scenes. I think my wife very much, she was running around taking a lot of the pictures. And so I just had them on my drive, and I'm like, these are great pictures, and I sent them to Tony. Yeah, it is boring. Who just wants a still shot from the movie?
I don't get it. I don't. Yeah, exactly. And it might even be too boring to do that. I mean, I just watched a few films, independent stuff, like you and I make, and it's like still gallery. I'm like, oh, okay, let's check it out. I end up just scanning through it. It's like 5 minutes, and it's just pictures from the film, and some of the pictures aren't even good. Like that's a blurry. Why do I want to see a blurry picture? Yeah, it's like you couldn't even find something interesting, like, oh, this is where the axe went in the head, or whatever it is,
because they don't give a shit. Yeah,
no.
Yeah, they just like.
And that's why on my two on the Axis 1 and 2 DVDs, I made sure to do that. I made sure it's behind the scenes. This is stuff you guys will not see in the movie. And so I really appreciate that. Thank you for not just doing a standard still gallery.
It was my intent with the extra features and everything that I do with the audio plays is I want to give more and more to people. I don't know why I have this in me that I want to give more and more to people. I think it's partially because I want to know more about this world, and so I keep writing about it. I'm working on the third audio play right now, which will be out this Christmas. I'm starting work on the film in September for part 2, and we already have plans for films 3 and 4. We have scripts ready for those too.
Nice.
So there's no end to Specimen 6 in my book, and I'm planning on working on a short story book still, because I want like more stories. I have all these stories in me I want to tell people. So
that's great.
Get ready. This is.
Yeah, and just the 3 things I mentioned aren't the only things. I mean, you get the the audio commentary, video journals, radio play, a very Specimen 6 Christmas. You got another radio play on here, Gray Manor, A Christmas Ghost Story, 2 shorts, so 2 bonus shorts, Let's Play with Dolls and Time to Science. There's the behind the scenes gallery. There's some trailers, and the short films are fun. They're not too long. They're a good, good short length, Pinch short film, and they're fun to watch. So there's definitely a ton of stuff on here for your buck. So this is definitely worth buying. So please, if you can, and it does say special limited edition. So this version,
it's extremely limited.
Yeah, may not be available again.
Go to sovhorror.com, buy tons of shit from Tony. He's got so many good movies. I highly recommend basically anything that he puts out is going to be a high. That's the thing about as collectors too. If you're a collector of DVDs, you want tons of extra features, and you want a good looking DVD. I want to be able to look at my shelf over here or over here, and I want to be able to think like just pick it up, even if you don't get to watch the movie. Like maybe you have enough time to watch a behind the scenes thing like before work or something, or if you just want to look at the DVD. And that's what I wanted from people, is like I want them to have a nice valuable thing in their hand. They're spending their money on something, make sure that it's worth something. So that's what I say. And it's limited edition, so but this time next year you're gonna be going for $500. I'm willing to bet. So
I'm hoping I need to pay my rent. So if I could do it with one movie, no, I'd never sell it.
Yeah. It's buy 5 now, and then you can put them on eBay later. So
there you go.
Yeah.
And then so you got one doll movie on this one, and then you have the second one, and we're gonna plug some Joe Sherlock a little bit more here.
Dark Zone 13. Yeah. So those are 2 separate things. So I did a short that Joe Sherlock had written He asked me to do a short for his film Dark Zone 13. That was quite a while after my first film, but I was friends with Joe, and I was very happy that he asked me, because I think Joe's a great writer and a great filmmaker, and so I was very happy to make that movie. And it's very much like other Joe stuff, but he had originally written that for Tony Mazziello. That Tony had told me later. Tony had asked him, like, do you have anything about a killer doll or something like that? And Joe wrote this thing, and then Tony didn't end up making it. But I guess a few years after that, Joe said, "Hey, I'm making this movie, and I got this script. Do you want to make it?" And it's kind of a simpler script, so he figured, well, Joe could do this because I hadn't done anything for a while. Sorry, I'm getting a little dry throat.
That's all right. Yeah, it's that time of year.
Yeah, but so we had done that film together. So yeah, so go out, watch Dark Zone 13 part 1. Sorry, over at you go buy it over at skullfaceastronaut.com. Is it okay if I plug things right now? I got lots of things coming up.
Oh yeah. And I'll say one other thing with Dark Zone is so you got, Joe Sherlock's on here, you're on here, so, and then you work with John Stone, and then you have a young gentleman named Flip, and
Philip,
so he is a Philip, so he is a very nice man. I've had several conversations.
Philip's great. Yeah, Philip's a good friend of mine too. Let's talk about Philip. So he lives over in Croatia, and he had done a previous film before that with Joe. I forget which anthology it was on, but it was the same Boris character. And so Philip and I are friends. Unfortunately, Philip doesn't get to do that many shorts because his resources are really, really limited, being over in Croatia and all that stuff. But he's probably the biggest Joe Sherlock, John Bowker fan in the world. Like, I think he literally is. So John Bowker made this movie called Seekers, and Philip has literally written like a 500-page novel that's like a sequel to Seekers. So you won't get somebody that's more knowledgeable about those two movies. So Philip does this beautiful film though, and it's this European sort of thing, but it's very unique in a lot of ways. Like, I've seen it maybe 6-7 times, and I learned just from watching Philip's movie because he has such a unique vision on life. So
yeah. He reached out. I think he reached out to me probably when I was plugging the Aximus stuff, maybe, or even Meat Hook. I'm not sure, but he asked. He's like, "Hey, if you need a poster designed or a DVD box," and he's like, "Hey, have you seen Dark Zone 13? I have a film in it." And I'm like, "No, I haven't, but I just got this, so I really haven't had a chance to watch it yet." So I got it with the David Sterling sale that he had, and so I picked up a bunch of Joe's movies, and so now I get to watch it, and yeah, he's a very nice guy. I like him. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
And so now plug away, please.
Plug away. Okay, so well, like I said, actually, there's if you are interested in learning more about Specimen 6, I have 4 audio plays that are actually up on the Perfect Ratio Films a YouTube channel. So we have the very Specimen 6 Christmas, Gray Manor. Both of those are up there. So that's not technically unique to that DVD, but I do have one called Sinister Mysteries and Madame Moxie's Psychic Happy Hour. So you get to learn more about all of those characters. I had those actors show back up, and they do I wrote some very different sort of things. So if you like the movie Specimen 6, and you want to hear an actual episode of Sinister Mysteries, there's an actual episode on my YouTube channel with those 2.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, and if you like Madame Moxie's character, I wrote a thing that has her, as well as Tanya Atomic shows up as another character as well. Coming up is, if you go to skullfaceastronaut.com, you can see a movie that I acted in called Channel 99, which just premiered in Corvallis.
Oh, yeah.
Oregon. So I act in that. So I've been very lucky to Joe asked me to act occasionally in something as whatever it is, but I show up and I act and do my thing. And then I directed a new feature that is coming out in Dark Zone 13 Part 2. It's a short. I can't really tell you much about that, but if you go onto Skullface Astronaut or Joe Sherlock's Facebook, you can see some pictures of it. I have The Perfect Ratio, which is coming out on this gentleman's movie.
That's right.
A Reign of Vibrant Screams. So it's a H.P. Lovecraft cosmic horror You're gonna love it. I think it's probably one of the best things I've ever done.
I
I'll
like
toot
it
my
quite
own
a bit.
horn if nobody else will. Thank you very much. Tanya Atomic stars in it, and so is Jonathan Bland. We worked really hard on it. I think it's a very different, unique HP Lovecraft sort of thingy.
Well, and I liked it so much that I actually bought art from
the
it.
painting that's
So
in it. Yes.
let me see. I think I have to put everything on my chest. So this is a painting from the film that I bought. I enjoyed it so much. I have to go all the way back there. Almost there it is. And I like this so much that I bought it. And now it sits behind me when I do podcasts. So it's right on my wall.
That is a painting that is, plays a part in the film. I painted that. So, jack of all trades sort of thingy. So we have that coming out whenever, October, you're saying? Something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that?
We're and Joe Sherlock is part of that. I'm waiting on him. So we got a few people that are still that I'm still waiting on. But August, like I've told them, August. So hopefully by the end of the
year. These things take a while. And then coming up after that, even because I never stopped working, I act again in another Joe Sherlock film coming through David Sterling called Things 666.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I play kind of a very different sort of character. I can't really talk about what the story is until you'll just have to see what happens. I think you're gonna like it. I've seen it. I helped with the audio commentary on the DVD that's coming out. So it's a wacky movie, but it's a lot of fun. Joe Sherlock directed. I acted in it. Tanya Atomic acted in it. All the other Joe Sherlock character players, as you know them, will be there. And I won't say too much, but I know a lot of people are excited to see a new Axe Grinder, and I was very fortunate that David Sterling allowed Joe Sherlock to say, "Hey, why don't you co-direct Axe Grinder 3 with Joe Vogele, that guy that did Specimen 6?" And so I said yes. So Axe Grinder 3 will be coming out sometime later this summer or early fall or sometime this year. So it's done. We just recorded the commentary, and I think it's fun. It's blood filled. We have, very different sort of things. It's really a big homage to the '80s and our love of the slasher killer genre, and we really delve into that. I can never get enough of killing people in that way. So so that's all my stuff that's coming out. Just keep checking us out. I'm always doing more stuff. So
wow, there you go. Yeah, I'm curious to see what type of mask Joe used for Axe Grinder 3. So
you'll have to see.
Because it's supposed to be a jester mask. David originally called it a clown mask, and I pointed out in the first film, I said, no, that's a jester. It's not a clown. So that makes it different from Camp Blood. And so I made sure to order a jester mask for part 2. Yep. And I'm like, I wonder if anybody else from like part 3 on will actually use a jester mask, or will it just be a clown mask?
You won't be disappointed. Don't worry about that, John.
That's good. Good. Yeah. Well, all right. So we are literally at the 2-hour mark. So I think we got literally everything in. I don't use the word literally a lot.
I think we did.
Yeah. So I think it does work for that. So if there's anything else, nothing else. All right. So we're gonna sign off then, and
all right,
keep this right at 2 hours or less. And so I'm John Ward. Thank you. There we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. And thank you, Joseph, for being here. I really appreciate it. This has been a great one. Time flew by. And please go check out, both, Dark 13 and, Specimen 6. So,
go buy Specimen 6 before it's gone.
Yeah, that's the hard one that's going to be that you have to get. So, all right, everybody, I will see you on the next one.
For real.
It will be. It will help pay your rent. So I will talk with everybody soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.